Hi and welcome. This is Greg Justice with Scripter Publishing Group, and I am here today with a very special guest, Dan Isaacson. And actually, his resume is so long that it would take the entire interview if I read it all. But just let me give you a brief summary of Dan Isaacson, who he is, what he means to this industry. Actually, in the personal training world, he's a legend. He is a pioneer in the personal training industry. Actually would have to be considered Hollywood's original personal trainer. He was the very first fitness editor at Good Morning America. He really is the premier fitness expert in Hollywood and really just an icon in the personal training industry. He's an author, he's a speaker. He's a fitness entrepreneur. So Dan, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Greg, great to be here. Believe me, it's a pleasure when it comes to anything Jack LaLanne, or anything related to their family.
Well, thank you. I so much appreciate it. And just, talking about Jack, I've had such a good time talking with fitness professionals about Jack and his legacy and what he's meant to each of the fitness pros that I've talked to. So I want to start the interview by asking you what Jack meant to you the first time you met him. How did that impact you, that meeting?
Well, it's interesting. My first meeting with Jack, having known him for years, we all grew up with him because our parents were there, for most of us at any rate. At any rate, wow. And I had been around, as you mentioned in my introduction, we developed the first personal training centers at Paramount Pictures and Sony Pictures. And I'd been around high profile folks my whole life, my adult life in fitness and much of it. And, but when I was asked to join the California Governor's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports, that the very, talented John Cates headed, along with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who had been the President's Council Executive Director, of his George Bush's health and fitness program. And I was just honored. So when that first meeting, I could hardly wait to meet Jack. Of all the people that I'd met before, I was meeting Jack LaLanne. And I remember there he was standing with Elaine, LaLanne by his side. And I went up to introduce myself. And I seldom do that. I rarely go up to any bro of high profile and say, hey, I'm Dan Isaacson. But I had to say, hey, I'm my first time here. I just wanted to introduce myself. And he grabs my hand and shakes it firmly. And he looks me right in the eyes and says, what do you want to tell me that I don't want to know? And I thought, I was kind of dumbfounded. What does he know that I don't know? Did I do something wrong? And then he kept looking at me, and then he began to laugh. And it was basically his way of saying, loosen up, everybody's made mistakes, don't worry about it. And it told me everything I ever needed to know about Jack LaLanne. He was inclusive, he was diverse, even whoever he worked with. Diversity and inclusivity is nature. Everything's okay. His humor was infectious, if that's a good word. Certainly it was contagious to me. And I had such a great night just watching him. And that was my first experience.
I love that. And the two words that I take out of that are humor and inclusivity, because those words have come up over and over and over in these interviews. So I appreciate hearing that story. Well, Dan, do you have any other stories about Jack?
Well, yeah, I have a lot of stories about. A couple of them really stand out to me. In fact, the one I wrote to you in my own draft for you to review, but there's some others as well. The one that I really thought was really great was when I was asked by John Cates to become the interim executive director of the council, which I did. That I became the executive director actually for the year before Melissa Johnson came in and took my place. But it was such a great year as executive director of the council because I saw John there to mentor me. And of course, Arnold was there to lead us all. But Jack was still Jack. So now there's one of our first meetings that I was at, I introduced Jack. He had a few words to say, as I recall. And he gets up there and he looks at the crowd intently. And everybody's waiting for this motivational something or humorous something from Jack. And I mean, he slams his hands down on the podium and says, my guys, sit up straight, tighten your abs, put your shoulders back, inhale, breathe. You look terrible. You're supposed to be the epitome of the health and fitness world. Look like it. I mean, he went after, everybody in the whole room tightened up And we're like, yes, sir. It was such a great, it was like he had his classroom with students, which he did. He always called his audience students.
Yep.
And everyone, PhDs, MDs, everybody came to attention. And I loved it. And then the other time that comes to mind, which is, it's because he was no respecter of persons. If somebody was off, he didn't care. So Arnold, of course, was our chair, the iconic, great Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the greatest. I'm a big fan of what Arnold has done for kids and other things. And any rate, he, of course, we were waiting for the chair, and I'm the executive director, and I'm waiting for the chair to get there. He had a movie. He was coming in, helicopter or something. And Jack, we were sitting off the side, and he pokes me and goes, Dan, forget to be a big oaf. Let's get this thing going. We got to get going. He's late. We can't. If he's late, he's late. Let's go. Something like that. And I don't know if it was oaf, but it was like, it was Jack, whatever he said. And I was like, okay, you're right. And then we went on. I'm sure Arnold would say, great, you should have.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
That was Jack for sure. And he was just delightful, always encouraging, always there for everybody, never taking credit, really. A lot of, as we know, some of the things he created, they actually came back and gave him, named for it, or, he gave acknowledgement for it. So those were a couple stories I remember. There are a lot more. Yeah. And of course, Lala, I can't talk about Jack without Lala Elaine LaLanne.
Right.
What a first lady of fitness is how I call her.
Yes.
And when I watched their old shows a lot, and over the years, and have actually shared with some of my clients, because they're so great. You can take his classes today. Just turn on the old stuff, and you'll get a workout.
On ESPN Classics.
Yes.
Yes. Every day.
And I love the one where he had his mom on. He credits his mom with a lot, as you know, about his healthy change.
Right.
I think that's very admirable.
Yes, indeed. No question about it. Well, let me ask you this, Dan. Let's transition into legacy talk. And when you think about Jack LaLanne and the legacy he left, certainly us in the industry, but not only that, let's expand in the industry, but then to the world. How would you summarize his legacy?
I'll read you what I did right, because I thought a lot about that. And I think that what's interesting is that his legacy really for me is fitness innovation, nutritional education, people-friendly programming, and his humorous and charismatic leadership is unmatched. I spent a lot of time on, you asked me that before, and I began thinking on that. What is his legacy really?
Yes.
He taught people, he encouraged people, he got people started, and he never changed. And the other thing that I really admire about him, because we always laugh about his suit and his appearance, but it was a big deal. Yeah. And it is a big deal. And we as professionally go out, as he addressed the council one day, look and be the part. Right. And we miss that sometimes, a lot. I think it's we are to be looked up to, not across from.
Right. Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that about the suit, because a lot of people think of Jack LaLanne in that suit. And we just did an article. It's a tribute to Jack. And actually, I'm going to grab a copy and show it to the camera here. And this is what Jack looked like outside of the suit. This is Jack when he was 40 years old.
That's great.
And I was glad that they put that on the cover. There's a 4-page tribute to Jack that I was fortunate enough to write in Personal Fitness Professional magazine. But I appreciated the fact that they put that on the cover, because it shows that underneath that suit, he was the real deal. And this is when he was 40 years old.
Yes.
So, he's so much more than people think of as the suit. That's the man behind the suit.
Yes.
And that was Jack.
Totally Jack.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
I really admire that.
Yes, indeed. No question. Like you said, he walked the walk. Not just talking the talk, but he certainly walked the walk. And I think you probably would fall into this same boat from the standpoint, from my perspective, having been in the industry almost 4 decades. You've been in even longer than that. But without Jack, without his influence, I certainly wouldn't be where I am today. The industry wouldn't be what it is today. And he is the true godfather of fitness.
Absolutely. I also, when you take a look at all the other great professionals in our field, yourself, others that we know that have carried on a great legacy, they would all say that.
Yes. He has mentored thousands of fitness.
Absolutely.
Without
There's no question about it.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. Well, as we wrap this up, I'm going to ask you to give me 3 words that you think would sum up Jack LaLanne and why you chose those 3 words.
Absolutely. This I also spent a fair amount of time on, those 2, legacy and these 3 words. Mm-hmm. There are 3 words that I feel really that affected me with Jack: truth, honest, and respect. And what I wrote was, Jack loved family, friends, country, and approached his calling in life truthfully, honestly, and with respect for all people. Mm-hmm. He loved helping others create healthy lifestyles of good nutrition and regular exercise. His legacy of fitness innovation, nutritional education, people-friendly programming, and humorous, charismatic leadership is unmatched. I think that truth, honesty, and respect, and he wraps that all around with diversity and inclusivity. Right. He understands people are diverse, and he understands that we have to be inclusive, whether you're physically challenged or whether you're not as whatever it might be.
Yeah.
He treated everybody the same. And he also he loved to jab people with jokes and things all the time too. So that was a part of the fun part. Well, part of my people that I've been around with were a lot of the high-profile comedians and folks in entertainment of comedy, and he's a lot like those folks.
Well, if you think about it, he was an entertainer because he was able to connect with everybody, and I'm not sure a lot of people inside the industry, which is a shame, but certainly outside the industry, I don't think they understand that Jack was the first person to introduce weight training to athletes, to women, to the physically disabled.
Correct.
And you talk about inclusivity. You're right. He brought everybody into the fold.
And when you look at that gym layout that he did in 1936, I believe it was.
Yes.
It's like today's gym layout in many ways. It's like today's functional spaces that we have in our big box gyms.
Right.
Same thing. And the other thing I thought was very fascinating when you asked me this, I thank you again, Greg, for including me on this.
Well, thank you.
And Elaine, for sure. But in 1954 was quite a pivotal year. That was the year that Jack swam the Golden Gate Bridge underwater.
Right.
And at the same time, Ray Kroc was selling mixers to the folks in Bernardino, California, which started the fast food industry the same year.
Right.
And we've been unlikely bed partners ever since, trying to get people motivated to move and making nutritional choices. And quite frankly, I applaud the fast food folks that have made strides to do a better job of that.
Indeed.
But we all grew up, or a lot of us grew up with that, but that was that 1954 year. And then, of course, later, which I love, in 1960, Wilma Rudolph was the first female Olympian that couldn't walk, and her doctor said she couldn't walk, and her mom said you can walk. So that parallel for me with Jack, which I write about too in my draft for you, are quotes that I think are very important for him. May I read you my 3 quotes that
I would love. I'd be honored to have.
I thought of all the great Americans, what do I think of when I think of Jack? And if you don't mind, I'll read them to you.
Please.
There is no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. President Ronald Reagan. The secret of getting ahead is getting started. Mark Twain. And my doctor told me I would never walk again. And my mother told me I would. I believe my mom, Wilma Rudolph. So that's what Jack means to me.
That is beautifully, I couldn't think of a better way to wrap this interview up. And I just really appreciate you for sharing that with us and for being part of this project that will introduce Jack LaLanne to the entire next generation of not just trainers, but to the world.
Thank you.